The Corporate Transparency Act was just ruled unconstitutional by a federal judge in Texas. Now, this law was the one that said you had to file a BOI, Beneficial Ownership Information Report, to the federal government for all of the LLCs that you have or any new LLC or corporation you set up. You had to file something to the federal government saying who owns it, 25% or more, or who has substantial control. That law is no longer in effect. It is no longer effective. You do not have to comply with it. Now, everyone's got a ton of questions about this, and as a lawyer, I've been fielding them for my clients, so I want to go over some of the most frequently asked questions about, well, what happens next? Is there an appeal? What's the Trump administration going to do about this? What if I already filed? What if the law comes back? Will I have to file this later? I'm going to cover all those questions here. All right, I'll start with the first question is, well, what just happens next? Well, in the legal process here, this was a federal district court ruling where a federal judge in Texas looked at the law nationwide and said this is unconstitutional on its face as applied to everyone. Now, the federal government lost in the case. The federal government was trying to defend this law. So what happens now is the federal government has to appeal the court's ruling to get the law back in effect, and they will appeal that ruling to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. This is the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals between the Federal District Court, Court of Appeals, then you got the U.S. Supreme Court. But they got to go to the Fifth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals first. That's the court where Texas rolls up to. Now, what has Fincen said about this? The Department of Justice? Nothing. They've been silent on this in the past couple of days. There have been no statements issued, and Fincen is still collecting BOI reports on their website, despite a federal injunction telling them they cannot enforce the law right now. They're still getting their crap together on this. We'll likely see an announcement on this, but I'm not sure what they're going to say. They may say we're going to follow the court's ruling. They may say we disagree with this. And the Biden administration, who's still in power right now, their Justice Department, their Department of Treasury may say we're going to appeal this, and they're going to may go to the Fifth Circuit immediately. And one of the biggest questions is, where does President-elect Trump stand on this? Well, interestingly, he vetoed the original legislation that had the Corporate Transparency Act. There was an omnibus national defense bill that he vetoed. Now, when he vetoed that bill, he said, I'm vetoing this because I don't agree with the defense spending. He thought it was too much. He didn't comment on the BOI filing or the Corporate Transparency Act. Now, his veto was overridden by Congress, and this did become the law of the land. Now, I think it's highly likely a new Trump administration, a new Justice Department, a new Department of the Treasury, a Department of Government Efficiency is going to come in and say, yeah, let's let this law die. If the Biden administration does appeal this, by the time we get in, we're going to withdraw the appeal and we're going to let the Texas ruling stay. BOI requirement is unconstitutional. That's my opinion on this. We don't really know. Trump hasn't made a statement about this, but I think it is most likely they are not going to pursue the case and they are going to let the Texas court be the final say on this. Now, I've had some other people ask me, should I still file my BOI out of an abundance of caution and make sure it's in before December 31st? I don't think you should. Why would you? A federal court has said this law is unconstitutional and that ruling applies to you. It applies to everyone. And there is an injunction against Fincen from enforcing it. They can't even enforce it. There's a literal court order stopping them from enforcing it that you get to rely on and benefit from. So I wouldn't file out of an abundance of caution. Now, we filed thousands of these for our clients already because they had to comply with the law. We didn't have a court ruling saying you don't need to worry about it. Now we do. So for those of you that procrastinated, this is where that does benefit you. Your procrastination has turned out to benefit you. You do not need to file this. I wouldn't even do it out of an abundance of caution. Let's just say that the Biden administration appeals this, the Trump administration follows through with it, and they overturn this in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals or maybe even later in the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, I would think at that time they're going to give another amount of time for you to file and get compliant with this, and I would worry about your BOI filing then. Until now, let's just rely on the actual law of the land, which is this Texas court ruling. Don't stress about BOIs for any of your existing entities or any new entities that you're setting up. Now, make sure you subscribe to my channel because there's going to be a lot of updates coming on this. We're going to see what Fincen says. Maybe the Biden administration is going to come out with something. President-elect Trump may say something on this. These will be important updates you're going to want to know. But also on my channel, I'm giving tax and legal advice, asset protection, retirement planning, tips and strategies on how you can grow and build wealth. I'm Sorensen. We'll see you next time.